Right, so we are the three principal aspects of the path. And last week we made it through verse 4, which is essentially a real strong, clear, foundational experience of our current situation. The four thoughts that turn our mind to Dharma, the rare and precious human rebirth we have, the impermanent nature of this life, the karma that we're entrapped in, and the very nature of samsara. So just before we go to 5, just want to recap. By accustoming your mind that there is no time to waste when a life of respites and enrichments is so difficult to find, rare and precious life that we have. Turn from your obsession with appearances of this life by thinking over and again about the problems of reoccurring rebirth, and that the laws of behavioral cause and effect are never fallacious, never false. Turn from your obsession with the appearances of even future lives. So I think we did a good job getting into that last week. But I guess the question that really comes up is, beyond a discussion of it, what would it be like to really have an experience of that? What if I really knew that I have a rare and precious human rebirth and all of the resources to awaken right now in this lifetime, that I have the key that unlocks the door to no more suffering, no more afflictions, no more tainted misperceptions, no more body aging, sickness, death, that I actually have right now in this very lifetime. Path of awakening right now. And it's taken eons of lifetimes for all of these conditions to come to fruition. How would my life be different if I knew that, and that this life could end at any moment? It's one thing to talk about it, to describe it. It's another to meditate on it. And so teachings on these is to take some time to really meditate on these 4 points. How precious is this life? How rare is it? Could I die tomorrow? The pith sort of thing that just caught my attention early on was the idea of a candle being lit and set outside, the flame. Yeah, it might stay lit, might not. Like that's my life. And that got my attention. But it comes and goes because, then it's Wednesday. And I'm thinking about the chocolate cake I have to get my wife tomorrow. And I don't remember how rare and precious this is. And so the idea here is, if we were to, in this teaching, is the whole point is we have to strive for renunciation. We need to cultivate this renunciation. And we really need to practice bringing to mind this very simple truth in a real way. So the method taught is what they call 3 wisdoms. And the first wisdom is talking about it. We talk about it. We read, hearing the teaching. But the second one is the wisdom that arises from contemplation, from debate, from analyzing. Is that true? Does that make sense? Does it hold up? I'm not going to gain much if it doesn't hold up, if it's something I need to believe in versus something that, I can really discern with my mind and have a sense of realization of that. And so for each of these points, the idea is to get the teaching on them and then meditate, and then go through it, pick it apart, and then ultimately meditate on that realization. After I picked it apart, after I really get it, because we forget it so easily, and not get it, forget it. I'm pretty good at forgetting. That great Dharma teaching I had back with the Dalai Lama and whatever. I don't know what he said. But yeah, there's verses that I will share often. This opportune physical form, more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel you gain, it's like the once. So hard to get, so easily destroyed. It's like a lightning flash in the sky. Contemplate this and you'll see that all worldly actions are but winnowed chaff. And night and day you must work to extract the essence of this life. I, yogi, practice this. You, seeking liberation, do the same. Which is essentially the same thing we're sharing. And that verse you'll find in the front of Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. Pith instructions just like these. But so it was 2000. That had to be 16 years ago, something like that. 16 years ago that I actually tried to learn like Tibetan Buddhist monks learn. I failed miserably, but I was giving it a shot. And so when Geshe Gelsen said, you want to learn Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, which is a pretty thick book, it's like that. We had a study group. His expectation is you could read it, you could memorize it, and then you could quote it, and you would take your time discussing each subtle point. So I actually tried to do that. And what I did was actually try to at least focus and memorize the verses that were quoted, and then the commentary, just understand them. And so I spent like a weekend once on just that verse, I don't know, 15 years ago, wherever. That verse is still in my consciousness. And, it's there because I spent so much time with it. I don't have a great realization of it. But that first wisdom's pretty strong. The second wisdom's getting there. And I've had some taste of what that feels like when I hear that verse, it does something. And so the idea is with these teachings is not that we come for a week and we hear a teaching and then we spend 6 days, doing whatever. And then, oh yeah, it's Dharma night. Yeah, what was that again? The idea is that if we really understood that right now in this life, which has taken eons of lifetimes to get, you have the key to unlock the door to the prison of samsara and be totally liberated. Well, we might want to take advantage of this. And how much energy do I put into decorating my prison cell instead of turning the key? And understand that that's a process, that we're not going to talk about it and tomorrow will be gun-ho and I'm in renunciation from now on. I'm not going to waste it. It's all good, until pizza shows up. And then, maybe I'll do that stuff tomorrow. It's that we just keep moving towards that, and we do it by reflecting on these pieces that we understand. And if we are to meditate on these four thoughts, if we are to bring them to mind, we have them in our morning practice to touch on them every day, but to take some real time with them. Something will shift at some point. Like the analogy Alan talks about, like a hot coal on your body or on your bed or something. Like you move like with a hot coal, and it's like with Dharma, with this idea that I can be free, that we're moved to action. And so this first section on renunciation, and there's only one more paragraph with it. They're giving you a method And then it's going to say, when by accustoming yourself in this way, and that's where he started, by accustoming your mind that there is no time to waste. Right now, this opportune physical form, more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, you gain its like the once. The once. Right now, this moment will never come again. So hard to get, so easily destroyed. It's like a lightning flash in the sky. Contemplate this. You will see it. All worldly actions are but wind and chaff. And so we want to accustom our mind to this, understanding that this life of respites and enrichments is so difficult to find, and we have it. Why do I want to spend all my time and energy decorating my prison? Because it's pretty comfortable. Prison can be all right if you got a good cell and a nice view and three hots and a cot. If you got nice neighbors. And so if we don't really understand the nature of this, it's pretty easy to forget and pretty easy to go, back to our habitual mind, which a little further on in Bodhicitta, they make it sound pretty grim here. Unrelentingly tormented by the three types, no, it's even worse, carried by the currents of the four violent rivers, tied by the tight fetters of karma, hard to reverse, thrown into an iron mesh pit of grasping for true identities, completely enshrouded in the heavy gloom of the darkness of unawareness. And they say Buddhists are pessimistic. But what they're describing, and we'll go, this is actually in the Bodhicitta section, is that we're carried in these currents. We're stuck in these four violent rivers, which is birth, aging, sickness, and death. Right? Nobody's getting out of that. And, right now, so many people are worried about the coronavirus and mortalities, kind of present on people's mind. And it's interesting, this is a perfect time to start thinking about these four thoughts, right? Because when it seems real, then suddenly I get pretty interested in what's relevant in my life. Otherwise, it's just kind of far away. It's kind of, a philosophical discussion. But when, I start questioning whether I can go to the market, whether or not I should go to that event or not, when I start getting nervous around someone who's coughing, I'm going to give some people a heart attack when I travel next week. Then everything becomes, what's relevant. And the idea with renunciation is that we want to hold that sense now. That I don't know how much time I have. What's relevant? What's relevant is right now. What I think, say, and do matters. And what I think, say, and do, everything I think, say, and do can be leading towards liberation and freedom. I have the rare and precious human rebirth right now. And if I'm mindful of my motivations, my intention, my right intention with the right view, everything I think, say, and do can be liberating instead of imprisoning. So am I coming from a place of renunciation, compassion, and loving kindness, harmlessness, and goodwill? Or am I coming from a place of, grasping, attachment, and aversion? Is it around hatred and anger or desire? What's my motivation? Am I just self-seeking? So am I reifying myself and the world I live in, hardening the prison, or am I undoing it? In which case, the interesting thing here when we talk about renunciation is not that by understanding that this is all a prison, it doesn't have to be a prison. So that's kind of the thing, some young man says, I don't know about those Buddhists, They suffer too much. They're all about suffering. And most Buddhists are pretty happy people. Because if you recognize it's a prison, it's an impermanent, you're not trapped by it. You're not caught up. I mean, what gets real fearful is this real grasping sense of self and me and mine, and how do I protect this, and how do I avoid that? And this mind that goes on that creates these torments, which, back to a real grim verse here, a real prison is an iron mesh pit of grasping for true identities. In other words, not recognizing that we are not an independent self. I keep grasping at John and my family and your things. And it's an iron mesh pit that is the source of suffering, completely enshrouded by a heavy gloom of darkness, of unawareness. In other words, out of my misperception and grasping at John as some separate thing, I keep imprisoning myself. Out of the darkness, out of my confusion, I keep tightening my chains, thinking I'm finding happiness. And what I'm really finding is a short respite from a more physical pain. Meanwhile, 3 sufferings are consistently going on. I will have some difficulties in my life that don't feel good. Some of the things that I used to treasure will bring me pain, as a matter of fact. That's the cycle, right? The things that I stress and worry about the most are the things that I think will bring me happiness. House, friends, family, all that. But the pervasive suffering, which is that the very nature of my existence, is the cause for my future suffering. As long as I'm in karma, as long as I'm trapped in this. And so now I have a key. Like, none of this is going to be necessary. In this moment, I am becoming. In this moment, I'm becoming. I'm becoming. I'm not stuck. I don't need to be stuck in a prison. I don't need to be stuck in any particular attitude or way of being. I'm changing moment to moment. There's an interdependent arising moment to moment. I can be utilizing the key that unlocks my prison and freedom right now. I am creating my future right now. And it's exciting when you realize that. The difficulty is we forget it. And so accustoming the mind is to bring it to mind again and again and again in a way that we can get a realization from it. And so that's the points that they make. Accustom your mind that you do have this rare and precious life, that you won't have it forever. It will come and it will go. You have this little window of opportunity. And I am creating karma right now. So instead of being imprisoned by my karma, I can be actively working to cultivate the conditions of karma that lead to awakening. And so just understand, and then bearing that in mind as I go out my day, then my whole day, whatever I'm doing, is the path of awakening. Everything I do, everything is a chance to cultivate merit and wisdom, a view, an opportunity to use this life wisely. That's a different attitude. And with that attitude, you're going to suffer a lot less if all of my experiences are the conditions from which I can awaken. Then whatever's happening in this moment, well, that's a result of previous karma. And what I'm doing now is creating the future. So it doesn't matter what's happening. What matters is how do I respond? How do I engage with what's happening? Am I reifying John? Or am I understanding the interdependent nature of merely labeled John? Then am I angry or am I experiencing anger? Am I happy or am I experiencing happiness? There's a lot more freedom in those other ones. And I'm just going to pause there. I know we got people online just in case anyone had a question. couple people here as well. If you do, just raise your hand and then I'll see it, and then we'll check in. Okay. I should be looking there. I keep wanting to look here. Yeah, so just raise your hand. There's a button on there. So having gone through this, then, the fifth verse is, when by accustoming yourself in this way, you never generate for even an instant a mind that aspires for the splendors of reoccurring samsara, and you develop the attitude that day and night always is interested keenly in liberation, at that time you have generated renunciation. So this is the goal, right? We always need to be where we are, start where we are. But the goal is, when you know that you've achieved renunciation, this is what it feels like. When you never generate, even for an instant, a mind that aspires for the splendors of reoccurring samsara, and you develop the attitude that day and night always is interested keenly in liberation. At that time, you have generated renunciation. A mind that understands is always prison. There's nothing that interesting about prison. Not even the hour out in the yard. Not that interesting. Unless I can use it for enlightenment. Then it's kind of interesting. So this becomes the entry point into the 5 pathways, path of accumulation. So getting there, though, is a challenge for us, right? Is A, developing the realization of this rare and precious life and its impermanence and so forth. That's one challenge. But then we can so easily go to that this is all miserable and I'm going to be miserable. And that's not what they want. Renunciation is renouncing the delusion, not renouncing the taste of cherry pie. I can enjoy cherry pie, but I know that the experience I'm enjoying is an interdependent experience. That's all. And the fact that it tastes good to me has a lot to do with what I've done previously. That's why cherry pie I happen to enjoy. My wife claims she likes sour cherry pie, like it's her favorite thing. I suspect it's chocolate cake, though. Yeah. Her birthday's tomorrow. I'm thinking chocolate cake. So this is where the 2 truths become very relevant, very relevant. And then, people can get lost when they hear a teaching like this. And then they, well, then none of this matters. Nothing is real, which is exactly where we get in a lot of trouble, because if I think nothing matters, when in fact everything matters, right? If there's a karmic tape recorder on, like, everything matters. It's not nothing matters. Everything matters. And so I do have a rare and precious human life, and it's in this form, with my confusion and my afflictions, is where I'm engaging in the path. That's where I'm at. And so I'm not a Buddha yet. I'm tainted. I'm in a human body. I have this path to awakening. So my job is to be a pretty good human being now. It's my job. Not to identify as a human being, but to know that that's my role currently. To be a good human being and to care about other beings and to use this rare and precious human form to unlock my confusion and recognize my Buddha nature. That this is a precious gift. So it's not to take lightly, and it's not to disregard, and it's not to abuse my own aggregates. It's to be healthy, to be well, to engage in a good human life, be a good neighbor, and to use this in a meaningful way. So I create the conditions and be around teachers and teachings in this path to where those conditions start to ripen. And with that, the opportunity to learn and apply, and this wisdom comes drip by drip. And it's a process. It's not an epiphany. It's a process. It might lead to epiphany. In my case, it's usually the epiphanies, but that it can lead to these awakenings, right? These moments. But the moment wasn't sudden. The moment was due to all the other causes and conditions that set me up for that moment. And so if I understand that I'm in this as a journey, then I can engage with it more wisely. Right now I'm in human form, not a Buddha yet. And I want to use this to keep watering the seeds of an awakened mind and experience. And then they'll grow. And I'll still do stupid things, and I'll still forget. But I'll do that less, and I'll do this more. And then what happens over time is that things that made no sense to me once make sense now, right? The teachings that seem so far away, they make sense. Because I am now ripening my mind as a fertile soil because of my karma, because of these wholesome actions, because of my merit. Then I read a same teaching that I didn't understand before, I understand it. It's like, wow. And so we're just it's an unfolding that takes place. So renunciation is this journey. It's not, okay, I get it, I'm going to be all different. It's understanding how to embrace my human experience and others in a way that accords more with reality and less with my confusion. We're renouncing the delusional way of grasping, the delusional thought that you made me angry. That's not even possible. You were a condition from which my anger arose. That's possible. So just understanding that and working that, oh, now I have some anger. I'm sad about it. What am I grasping to? It's things didn't go my way. And don't you know? They ought to. I have a plan. Things should go my way. Or you don't think the way I think. Or you belong to another political party. Or you must be an idiot. Or just all of these labels and confusions and reifying people, places, and things instead of understanding a flow. And so we just want to start to understand that if I keep grasping into a reality that doesn't exist and it's not in accordance with reality, seeking happiness, decorating my home with treasures, home, friends, family, pleasures of samsara, it's something like that in our morning practice, is this cause of three sufferings, or I'm in torment because of three sufferings. Home, friends, pleasures of samsara don't need to be suffering. You enjoy my home if I'm not attached to it. If I'm attached to it, it's going to be really hard to enjoy my home. I can love another human being if I'm not attached to them. I attach to them, boy, they're going to have some claw marks down the back. And then instead of loving them, I love how they make me feel when they act in a particular way that I like. And I don't love them so much when they don't act that way. So do I love them, or do I love how they make me feel when they act in a particular way? This is how attachment, misperception creates all this suffering, as opposed to understanding that the person I experience and all the people I experience have much to offer. And if I have their best interest at heart and my best interest at heart, well, then that's a nice union of what's best for all of us. And I can actually love and care about someone without claw marks down their back. Because that's about me, not them. So this is the things that we want to accustom our mind to, and start to notice, as you said here, turn from our obsession with the appearances of this life. the appearances, the experience I'm having of samsara, recognize they're giving rise to my suffering. They're not. There's nothing out there that's going to provide me the peace, happiness, and well-being that I'm seeking. And that the laws of behavioral cause and effect are never fallacious, false. And that's such a beautiful thing right there. It's so simple and incredibly hard to remember. But if prior to doing anything, speaking, doing anything, thoughts, any action, if my motivation is coming from renunciation, loving kindness, compassion, or put the other ways, harmlessness and goodwill, then anything I do after that is karmically beneficial. That's all I need to do. It doesn't even matter what I'm doing. I don't need to really monitor that. I need to monitor my motivation. Just 3 things I need to remember. And if my motivation is coming from a grasping, and then out of that, anger and hatred or desire, grasping, then it's all tainted. Everything out of there. So that's a pretty good practice to start to realize how often it's easy to go one way and how difficult is the other. And then, of course, we can then get caught up, I'll never get this. Instead of, no, I can chip away at this. Chip away at this. I used to visualize myself with a little teaspoon. Like this big mountain. That's all my karma. Yeah. I think there's an analogy of that in Liberation of Palm Your Hand, like a big old dung mountain. And you got a little tiny spoon, And but every spoonful gone is there. And then what happens is it's like synergic. It's like a little bit, and then at some point it's faster, because what shifts everything is my understanding of interdependence. What shifts everything is my understanding of emptiness. As that becomes more aware in my mind, then all the other things move much more quickly, because the confusion comes from me grasping to myself and in a way that's not real. Independent self, independent phenomenon. So once that shifts, that spoon turns into like a power shovel or something. Yeah. Backhoe. It turns into a backhoe. Yeah. As long as the mountain didn't get any bigger, you'll be all right. So back to 5. Then, having done this, at some point, there will be a point when we don't generate, even for an instant, a mind that aspires for the splendors of reoccurring samsara. And you develop the attitude that day and night, always interested keenly in liberation. At that time, you've generated this renunciation. So this is the first of these 3 principal aspects. So renunciation is going to be, there's no way to break out without renunciation. And so we want to, and the challenge is, we still need to appreciate things and humans and animals and other beings, and have a care and concern for them without some sense of desire to want these things. And so it's a hard rub. It's a really hard rub. And it's a fine dance to work with. And I think the shift is one that says, instead of going out and spending a lot of time on things that give only temporary pleasures, I'm going to start spending more time with my practice. I'm going to start spending a little more time studying. I'm going to start spending a little more time that. And then what happens, I think, according to Je Tsongkhapa, I like the way she, is that we'll just gradually lose interest. Right? We're not fighting it. That's just not as interesting anymore. And this Dharma is more interesting. Me being patient with my neighbors more interesting than blowing them off so I can go do something else. That it just becomes more interesting because I recognize that attending to another being here is my path of awakening, as opposed to, one more, Star Wars movie. Not to say a Star Wars movie's bad, but just say. So there lies the problem. How do I appreciate something that is a prison? Right? It's not easy. It's just not, because our mind will go to that. But what we can appreciate is that I have an opportunity to engage in this prison as a path of awakening. And when I appreciate that everything that's showing up to me is my path of awakening, then I can appreciate it. If I see every other being as my supreme teacher, offering me the opportunity to cultivate a little more perseverance or a little more joy or a little more this or that, then I can appreciate others. I can appreciate my situation because it's showing me my mind. It's showing me my mind. And that, there's no way to get anywhere unless I have those opportunities. And so there is a skillful method to start appreciating others, to appreciate the beauty of this environment, who made those tankas, and all these things, and what a devotional piece they must have had to put that energy in, and that how often I get to have that ripen in my mind, and so starting to understand that everyone, everything appearing to my mind is appearing for my path of awakening to benefit all sentient beings. And it becomes pretty interesting to enjoy the social interactions of, I'm going to go with chocolate cake. With chocolate cake tomorrow night. It's going to be like a beneficial thing as with humans, because that's where I am right now. Without being attached in case they don't have the right kind of chocolate cake at Whole Foods Market. Pretty sure they will, though. If I don't die before I get there. So herein lies the opportunity, and we want to, in the invitation this week, not that we want to, I'm just going to invite you to start to notice, really start to notice how quickly we forget. How much do I really just, this is the way I think things should be. This is the way I want things to be. How much suffering is arising because I want things to be different than they are. Because that's when we start to get and understand my obsession with the appearances of this life, how much it creates suffering. And what if I were to look at it just a little differently? Well, there's an opportunity to cultivate the path. Good thing to work with here. So I didn't see any hands yet, but we got just a couple minutes in case anyone did have a question or thought. The sixth verse is going to take us into the beginning of Bodhicitta. All right, well, looks like everybody online's okay. And you guys are all right? Want some chocolate cake? No, I do. Yeah, now I do too. What's that? Yeah. Going to Whole Foods tomorrow. Have a good one. And if it's delicious, it'll be delicious because of the experience of previously created karmic imprints coming to rise with the phenomenon I label as chocolate cake. Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit and the wisdom that we've accumulated. So let us dedicate the merit and wisdom that we've accumulated here today and throughout our lifetimes. We dedicate this for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be free of suffering, find their liberation. May we be able to use the wisdom and merit accumulated here today and throughout our lifetimes to purify our own minds, to help us cultivate a pure renunciation so we can engage in this path fully. And may we also dedicate the merit and wisdom accumulated here today and throughout our lifetimes for the long life of all spiritual teachers, of all spiritual traditions who are authentically teaching the path of awakening. May they live long, may their teachings flourish, and may their students put those teachings to practice. And one last thing, for all those suffering from the coronavirus or other ills, may they heal quickly. May those professionals working to alleviate the health and suffering that work in the health field that are alleviating the suffering of this disease and helping others find their health. May they flourish. May their skilled actions produce the results to help all those that come into their care.